At my son's wedding, my daughter-in-law demanded my apartment keys in front of 130 guests. When I refused, she slapped me so hard. I left and made a phone call. 20 minutes later, a man appeared at the door of the hall, and when they saw who it was, they began to cry. Her hand cracked across my face so hard my earring flew. The sting came first, then the burn, and then the silence, an awful silence that swallowed the entire hall. 130 guests froze mid-laugh, mid-toast, mid-forkful of biryani. Even the DJ's playlist faltered, the beat stumbling as if the speakers themselves had flinched. I didn't hear my son's voice. I didn't hear apologies. What I heard was the blood rushing in my ears, loud and steady, as though my own body was trying to drown out my humiliation. My cheek throbbed, my balance tilted, and when I bent to pick up the tiny gold hoop that had shot loose, the parquet floor gleamed with a cruel reflection of me, head bowed, face burning, eyes blurred. "Give me the keys, Auntie," Hira said again. Her tone was sugar with glass hidden inside. "You said you'd keep nothing from us. We're family now." She looked past me, not at me, to the crowd watching. Her smile widened, a performance stitched with victory. I found my voice, soft and shaky. "Not tonight, Beta. This isn't the time." Her palm struck before I'd even finished the sentence. Laughter rippled from the edges of the hall, nervous, shameful laughter. Someone muttered, "Family matters, you know how it is." My son, my only boy, the groom in his black sherwani, looked as though his tongue had turned to stone. He stared at me, then at her, then back at the floor. His silence felt heavier than the slap. I pushed through the crowd, past the mirrored pillars and the table piled high with envelopes of cash, past cousins whispering behind henna'd hands. The hallway smelled of polish and bleach, and the air was cooler, less forgiving. My heels clicked against the tiles, each step harder than the last. I pressed my palm against the wall, the chill steadying me. My cheek throbbed like a drumbeat. I pulled my phone from my clutch. The screen glowed, smudged with fingerprints. My thumb hovered, hesitated, then tapped a number I hadn't dialed in months. It rang once. Twice. She answered on the third. "Hello?" "Sadia." My voice sounded calm, almost detached, though my hand trembled. "It's me." There was a pause. She heard something in my tone, she always did. "What happened?" I swallowed. "Bring the keys I couldn't give. And a door they can't close." Silence again, but this one different. Intentional. Then she said, steady as iron, 20 minutes. "Don't move." I ended the call and leaned against the corridor wall. A cleaner pushed a trolley past me, stacked with folded tablecloths, their starch smell sharp in my nose. He looked at me, looked at my cheek, and quickly looked away. That was the worst part, that everyone could see, and no one wanted to see. The door to the hall cracked open, letting out a swell of music that seemed obscene now, a Punjabi pop song about love and forever. I saw a sliver of the ballroom, Hira twirling in her gown, guests clapping again, as though nothing had happened. My son raised a glass with a stiff smile. My throat tightened. I pulled away from the wall, straightened my sari, wiped the gloss that had smeared at the corner of my lips. In the glass of the fire extinguisher case, I saw my reflection, a black woman with swollen cheek, kohl smudged under her eyes, lips trembling though I willed them still. My mother's words echoed, words she used to say when I was a girl in Brixton trying to survive schoolyard cruelties. "They'll take your silence as a door left open. Close it when you must." My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from my son, "Amy, please, don't make a scene. We'll sort it later." I typed nothing back. What was there to say? A wedding guest came out, a distant cousin from my husband's side. She fussed with her dupatta, avoided my eyes, then whispered as she passed, "You should let it go. Better for everyone. Better for everyone but me." I stood in the corridor, cheek still throbbing, hand clutching my little clutch bag so tightly the beads dug into my palm. I felt like a door had been slammed in my face, locked from the other side. But then I remembered Sadia's voice, low and fierce in my ear, 20 minutes. Don't move. So I didn't. I stood there, upright, the sting in my face turning into something hotter, deeper, harder. The clock above the fire exit ticked. 5 minutes passed. 10. A guest came out for a cigarette, smoke trailing like questions I couldn't answer. 15 minutes. My heart pounded with every set of footsteps I heard down the stairwell, with every burst of laughter muffled by the heavy hall doors. At 19 minutes, the doors opened again, and the air shifted. I straightened, clutched tighter in my hand. I heard the echo of her boots first, firm against the tile, followed by the scrape of a tote bag hitting her hip. Sadia. Her figure filled the corridor, coat damp with drizzle, her eyes sharp, searching for me. When she saw me, she didn't ask, she didn't scold. She simply stepped close, laid a hand against my unmarked cheek, and whispered, "I'm here." Behind her, 3 women followed, each carrying something under their arm, rolled tight. Not flowers. Not gifts. Banners. And as they moved toward the ballroom doors, the bass from the hall faltered again, as if the building itself knew something was about to change. I drew a breath, my cheeks still burning, my chest tight, and followed. The doors swung open. The light from the hall spilled over us. And that's when the room turned, head snapping, whispers rising, the music cutting out like a record scratched. Sadia stepped inside. The others unrolled their banners, the fabric snapping open with a sound like a flag in wind. Every guest's eyes widened, and then, for the first time that night, it wasn't me they were staring at. I felt the heat shift from my skin to the air around us. And I knew the next 20 minutes would change everything. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sadia said, voice carrying without a mic, "we need the music off." The DJ's hand hesitated on the mixer. Then the bass died mid-beat. Cutlery paused above plates. 130 faces tilted toward us like sunflowers turning on a sudden wind. I felt every gaze skim my cheek before landing on the 4 women drifting in like a weather front, banners tight in their hands, coats still glittering with London drizzle. Sadia didn't look at me. She didn't need to. Her eyes were on the room the way a surgeon's eyes are on the cut, precise, unflinching. "I'm Sadia Khan," she announced, "and this woman," she touched the air near my shoulder, not my skin, "was assaulted in front of you. This is not a family matter. It is public violence." A glass somewhere chimed against a plate, a nervous ding. On the sweetheart table, Hira's smile shrank at the corners, as if a thread had been pulled. My son half rose, then sat again, fingers worrying the napkin in his lap. "We're just here to celebrate," someone called from the back, forced cheery. Let's not." "Let's not what?" Sadia asked, head tilted, braids sliding over her shoulder. "Name what you all saw." A fizz of whispers rolled through the tables. The mirrored pillars reflected everyone twice, once as they wished to appear, once as they were, startled, wary, calculating. My skin buzzed as if the slap had scattered 1,000 bees under it. Farah, the smallest of Sadia's trio, stepped forward and placed a slim folder on the gift table beside an enormous gold-wrapped box. "We'll be brief," she said, voice even. "We're logging witnesses. If you saw the assault, we need your name and contact. There's no accusation here that isn't already evidenced." Hira's mother, Shabnam, rose with fluid grace, palms pressed together like she was smoothing a prayer. Sisters, she said to them, smiling the way women smile before they throw a dart, we all honor women here. But tonight is sacred. The bride and groom, her hand fluttered toward the couple. Please. Don't embarrass them. Sadia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Sacred nights don't require a woman to accept being struck. A sound like a held breath filled the room. An auntie on table 12, turquoise sari, pearls at her throat, glanced at me and then quickly began rearranging cutlery that didn't need rearranging. Behind the bar, the bartender polished a glass that was already clean to a military shine. The hall staff stood in a tight cluster near the kitchen door, whispering. I could feel my heart like a drum through satin. A part of me wanted to shrink, to apologize for walking back in with witnesses and words. But my cheek burned, reminding me what silence buys. Sadia turned to me and spoke low, for my ears only. Stand with me. That's all. So I did. My palms were damp against the satin of my clutch. I breathed. The scent of roses and hairspray and cardamom rose thick. The chandeliers hissed. Keys, someone muttered from a nearby table. It was about keys. We're not discussing household details, Shabnam cut in, sweet sour. Misunderstandings happen in families. Our daughter is under pressure. The groom's mother is, her eyes skimmed me, choosing an adjective, discarding it. Upset. Upset, Sadia repeated softly, as if tasting the word. That's one name for a bruise. Farah opened the folder. Just to be precise, time of incident, 21:44, witnessed by at least 5 guests on table 12 and 3 on table 15, plus the DJ, plus hall staff near the dessert station. She lifted her phone, voice memos app open, the red line creeping. Initial statement recorded. Photos available on consent. A tremor went through me. My mouth was dry. I consent, I said, aloud, and the word steadied me. Hira pushed back her chair, the scrape a knife on tile. She didn't look at me, she looked at the room. This is ridiculous, she said, laugh brittle. Auntie is making drama. She always said she loves us like her own, why would she deny us a home? It's not assault, it's hysteria. A murmur of agreement bubbled here and there, low, embarrassed men's chuckles, women's sighs. Family, someone whispered. Fix it quietly. Sadia's eyes moved to my son. Ayan, she said, gentle as a teacher asking for an answer she knows the student has. Did you see what happened? His throat worked. He pressed both hands flat on the table, the wedding band glinting on his finger like a tiny sun. I saw a misunderstanding, he managed. We can resolve it later. Mom, please. Not now. Not now where my face was a map of the moment. Not now where the memory would calcify into the story people told, the black mother who made a scene at her son's wedding. I felt the old script trying to pull me back, be small, be grateful, endure. Nyla, the tallest of the trio, lifted a clipboard. Names? She asked. If you saw, please, just your names. You can write them down. You don't need to speak. There was a long heartbeat where no one moved. Then a woman at table 12 raised her hand like a shy child. Anita, she said. I saw. She stood, pushing back her chair with a bravery that looked like trembling. I was at the dessert table. Anita flicked her eyes toward Hira, slapped her. A man beside her exhaled through his nose and stood as well. Imran, he said, not meeting anyone's eyes. I saw too. A third voice piped up, an elderly gentleman near the bar. I heard the crack. His wife nudged his elbow, horrified, but he lifted his chin. Everyone heard it. Hira's smile vanished. Her face hardened into something sleek and cold. "So now we're collecting signatures," she said. "What is this, a petition?" "It's accountability," Sadia said simply. "It keeps us honest." Shabnam let out a slow sigh, palms open. "We are people of dignity," she said. "A public scene helps no one." "Sister," she turned to me, voice warming like she had discovered compassion in the last second, "be the bigger person. You know how young brides are, nerves." She didn't mean it. She meant the keys, I heard myself say. A hush fell, a different hush, the one that comes when a sentence is true and everyone hates it. "Keys?" someone repeated, scandalized. "At a wedding?" "Exactly," Farah said. "Exactly here. Because spectacle is a tool." The DJ shifted, uncomfortable, hand hovering near his crossfader as if music could patch this. Sadia glanced at me, a quick flicker of permission sought and granted. "We'll be making a brief statement and then leaving," she announced. "If the bride wishes to apologize publicly, we'll record that. If not, we'll proceed with an official complaint, including the witness list. Either way, this will not be folded into silence and called respect." A murmur of shame snaked through. I couldn't tell if it was aimed at me or at the act itself. My heart banged once, hard. My skin felt like armor suddenly, thin, dented, still armor. Hira huffed out a laugh that wasn't a laugh. "You can all go. I don't owe anyone here anything." "You owe her an apology," Ayan said, so softly at first I thought I'd imagined it. He stood fully this time, voice clearer. "Hira. Please." It landed like a small bird on a battlefield. Fragile. Astonishing. Shabnam's head whipped toward him. "Beta." Hira's gaze sliced, a warning only he understood. He sank half a centimeter, then steadied. Sadia stepped aside so I could be seen, not shielded. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. "You will not have my keys," I said to no one and everyone. "Not tonight. Not ever without my consent." The words didn't feel like a performance. They felt like teeth finally fitting where they belong. Farah tapped her folder. "We're done here." She slid a pen toward the nearest witness. Names. A few people moved, a few people sat frozen, calculating outcomes, reputations, future invitations. The bartender poured water into a glass and forgot to stop, overflow pooling like a small lake on the counter. A rustle near the entrance pulled every eye to the doors. A man stepped out of the shadow of the corridor and into the harsh chandelier light. Broad shoulders under a tailored navy suit, beard trimmed to a sharp line, jaw tight. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at the banners. He looked at Hira first, then at my son, then at Sadia with a smile that wasn't a smile. He lifted his chin. "Enough theatrics," he said. "You people think you can barge into our night?" "Who are you?" Sadia asked, polite in a way that was dangerous. He ignored her. His gaze slid to me, cool, dismissive, weighing. "Auntie," he said, the honorific curdled in his mouth, "hand over the keys and the sens. We don't need outsiders here, stirring poison." "Name," Farah said, pen poised. His eyes glittered. "Bilal," he said, flexing his fingers as if the word itself was a fist. "Brother of the bride." The room breathed him in like a spark to dry leaves. "Lovely," Sadia said. "Then you can apologize on her behalf and sign your name as witness." His laugh was quiet and blade thin. "Over my dead body." The chandelier's crystals chimed in a draft that hadn't existed a second before. My tongue tasted metal. Across the hall, my son's hand slipped off his napkin and curled into a fist on the tablecloth, knuckles white. Sadia's banner tightened in her grip. Farah's phone blinked red, recording. Nyla's clipboard hovered like a shield. Bilal took one step closer, the parquet catching his reflection and throwing it up at his face. Or, he said, very softly, so only the nearest tables heard and everyone leaned in to hear it anyway, you give us what we came for. My cheek burned, and my resolve burned hotter. Try, Sadia said. The hall held its breath. The bruise bloomed overnight like a dark flower. When I touched it, heat pulsed under my skin, and I swear I could still hear the echo of the slap, like glass ringing in an empty room. I wrapped a silk scarf around my head and stepped into the morning rain. London smelled like wet pavement and coffee grinds. The buses hissed, red doors opening like mouths. Come, Sadia said, tugging her hood tight. Police first. Then the clinic. The front desk at the station was the color of old paper. A poster about hate crime curled at the edges. A fan clicked, thunk, thunk, like a bored metronome. Behind the glass, a duty officer in a too-big uniform looked up and blinked at my cheek, then at the women with me, then away again. I'd like to make a report, I said. My voice surprised me, it sounded like I'd borrowed it from someone braver. Okay, he said, sliding a clipboard through the slot. Nature of the incident? Common assault, Farah answered, calm, as if ordering tea. At a private venue with approximately 130 witnesses. He hesitated. Family, disagreement? Assault, Sadia repeated, gentle as a warning. I wrote my name. The pen's chain rasped against the desk, a small, stubborn sound. When I reached the description box, my hand shook. I wrote anyway. She demanded my keys. I refused. She struck me with an open hand, left cheek. Time approximately 21:44. Location, main hall. Witnesses, see attached. The officer cleared his throat. Do you want to keep this private? It can get messy when. Sir, Farah said, voice still even. We'll take the crime reference number. He tapped slowly, as if buying time. The printer coughed and spat a thin strip of paper. He tore it free and slid it to me with 2 fingers, the way people pass tissue to the recently bereaved. The number was long and ugly. It felt like a fence I could lean on. Next step, he said, softer now, go get that looked at. We'll note your statement, contact witnesses, and follow up. Outside, the rain had softened to mist. It beaded on my scarf, my lashes. Sadia tucked the paper into a plastic sleeve like it was a birth certificate. Clinic, she said, and we moved again. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and lemon. A toddler cried in great outraged gulps. The number board clicked over to 104, mine was 118. I sat between Nyla and Meher, fingers folded tight. The bruise tugged every time I smiled at the toddler's wobbly dance. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I put them in my lap, then in my coat pockets, then clasped them again. There is a particular humility in waiting for a stranger to look at your pain and give it a name. When my number flashed, Meher stood with me. The clinician was brisk, kind-eyed, the sort of person who makes you want to tell the truth before she even asks for it. She tilted the lamp toward my face, light gathered in the swollen skin, showing its purple edge. How did it happen? She asked, clicking her pen. A slap, I said. Saying it made the heat flare again. I lifted my fingers close but didn't touch. Last night. Any headache? Nausea? Blurry vision? Just a headache. And embarrassment. I let out a breath that wanted to be a laugh. It failed. She nodded, the kind of nod that says I hear the word beneath the word. She put on gloves with a soft snap, then prodded gently. Superficial contusion. I'll document it. Can I take a photo for your notes? With your consent. I signed the consent. The camera clicked, the sound felt like a tiny, metallic verdict. She printed 2 copies of the report, one for me, one for my GP, and typed something into the computer that made a satisfying clatter. Ibuprofen for swelling, cold compress, she said. If you feel dizzy, come back. Anne. I'm sorry this happened. There are support services, she slid a leaflet across the counter. You don't have to go alone. When we stepped back onto the street, the rain had stopped. Wet leaves stuck to the pavement like fallen stamps. A bus roared past, sending a wet gust up my legs. I realized I hadn't eaten. My stomach rasped like paper. Coffee, Sadia declared, which meant tea and toast. In the corner cafe we sank into mismatched chairs. The window fogged. I held the hot mug to the side of my face and let the steam kiss the bruise. It smelled like tannin and safety. What now? I asked. Work, Sadia said. I groaned. They'll say take your time and then log that I'm unreliable. Good, she answered. Let them log compassion. Farah will email HR your crime ref number and the clinic report with your permission. I nodded. The mug warmed my palm till my fingers stopped twitching. Do you think anyone recorded it? The moment. I hope not, Nyla said. But if they did, we'll remind them that sharing it makes them complicit. I paid in coins, stubborn about that, the small clink like reclaiming something I couldn't name. My office smelled of toner and soup. The radiator hissed. Imran, who'd worked the far desk for years, lifted his head and froze on my bruise for half a second too long before guiltily adjusting his glasses. Hey, you okay? Had a bad night, I said, and found a smile somewhere. I need to talk to HR. Our HR manager, tight bun, steel-rimmed glasses, watched me sit and folded her hands like gates. I slid the clinic report across, then the number from the station. She read, lips set. I'm sorry, she said, and it sounded real. Take the next 2 days as paid special leave. We have a policy now. She pulled a printed sheet from a file, domestic abuse and workplace support. The letters were dry, but the meaning was wet in my eyes. If you need to change your work hours for appointments, do it. No one is going to query it, not with me. Thank you, I said, throat tight. I'll make up the monthly close next week. You'll make up nothing, she said briskly. You'll breathe. She slid over a small card with numbers on it. Also, a helpline. They're good, not nosy. Back at my desk, the screen glared like a stage. I opened my budget spreadsheet and stared at the neat little boxes that pretended life could be contained in columns. Savings, £2,640. Service charge, £140. Gas and electric, £210 if the winter stayed kind, which it never did. Mortgage paid off years ago by grit and small miracles. If I lost the flat, if I handed over the keys and temporarily relocated where someone else decided, what would it take to get back? Rent for a 1-bed within 3 bus rides of work, £1,250 minimum. Deposit, another £1,250 plus fees. My savings would dissolve like sugar in hot tea. 4 months, maybe 5, and I'd be broke. The thought went through me like cold iron. I opened a blank email and sent the clinic report and crime ref number to myself, to a second address, and to Sadia, subject line, backups. I attached photos of my bruised cheek I'd taken in the bathroom at work, the fluorescent lighting flat and unforgiving. I felt ugly sending them. I felt strong pressing send. My phone buzzed. Amy, can we talk? After work? Please don't do anything rash. His contact photo was him at 12, front teeth too big for his face, cheeks like ripe plums. It ached to look at. After 6, I wrote back. Call me. At noon, Farah texted, witnesses confirmed, 5 direct, 3 heard. DJ will cooperate. Hall manager says CCTV in hallway only. Worth asking. CCTV, I murmured, and Imran looked up. What's that? He asked. Nothing, I said, and stood. Back in 10. The hall manager met me with a pinched smile, the kind people wear when they've decided a story about you in their head. We don't release footage without police, he said, palms up, but his eyes flicked to my scarf, to the bruise, then away. But I'll note the request. Noted requests have a way of being lost, Farah said sweetly beside me. She'd appeared like she's always appeared, right when I need her. She slid across a letter on her paralegal letterhead. This is formal. If footage is overwritten, we'll record that too. On the bus home, I sat by the window and watched the city smear by, the shop fronts, the school kids with 2 big rucksacks, a woman hauling groceries like she was dragging a small planet. I could smell onion and cumin on someone's coat and it made my chest hurt with homes I've had and homes I would not lose. In the lift, a neighbor looked at my face and said, heard anything? And I said, not yet, and he said, shout if you need, and I thought, I am shouting, just not the way you think. Inside my flat, the quiet was a bowl, deep and holding. I put the kettle on and listened to the water warm. My phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number, we can make the complaint disappear. Keys and peace. Simple. I stared until the words blurred. Then I took a screenshot, emailed it to myself and to Farah, and saved it in a folder named Door. I didn't know why I called it that. Maybe I did. At 6, my son called. He spoke fast at first, guilt pulling him forward. Amy, please, don't do this the hard way. Hira's family is, there's pressure. They're saying you're trying to humiliate them. I said no, I answered. The kettle began its thin whistle. I said it in the hall, and I'm saying it to you now. You can start in a rental. I'll help with deposit if you need. A rental? He sounded like I'd suggested a tent by the A23. We planned. You planned with my walls, I said, and heard my own voice, how clean it was. You didn't plan with me. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was young. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose my home, I said gently. Maybe we can both keep what's ours. We hung up with a soft promise to talk again tomorrow. I poured tea, held the heat to my cheek. The flat smelled of thyme and the last of the cumin I'd toasted days ago. I wiped the counter twice, then again, because my hands needed something to do that wasn't shaking. A soft scrape sounded at my door, a small mouse scratch of metal on metal. I froze. The hairs lifted on my arms. I set the mug down without a sound and walked to the peephole. A shadow stood too close, and I pressed to the other side like a coin. My heart sprinted. I didn't breathe. The scrape came again, metal on paint, then footsteps down the corridor, casual, unhurried. My mouth tasted of pennies. A minute later, something slid under the door. White paper, the edges damp with corridor damp. I stared at it for a full count of 10, as if it might explode. My hand wasn't steady when I bent to pick it up. Block letters. Family arbitration, 7 p.m. tomorrow. Community hall. And at the bottom, in the heavy ink of someone who wanted to bruise even paper, bring the keys. The community hall smelled like damp carpet and too sweet tea. Tube lights buzzed overhead, making everyone look a little sallow, a little tired, like we'd all been dragged here by the same stubborn hand. Folding chairs formed a crooked circle. A thermos sat on a plastic table beside a stack of paper cups. Someone had taped a sign to the door that said family meeting in block letters, as if printing the word family could keep the wolves out. I sat near the back, hands wrapped around nothing, fingers aching to hold a key. Sadia leaned against the wall by the fire extinguisher, arms folded, coat unbuttoned. Farah had her folder open on her lap. Nyla stood like a lamppost with a clipboard. Meher's tote bulged with leaflets no one wanted to take. Ayan came in first, eyes scanning for me, then fixing on the floor. He looked like a boy who'd worn new shoes to school and realized no one else had. Hira followed, bangles chiming a little too loudly. Shabnam was behind them, smile pressed flat. Bilal strode last, shoulders set as if daring the chairs to defy him. 3 men I didn't recognize arranged themselves at the front, self-anointed elders, collars starched, righteousness ironed in. The tallest cleared his throat into a microphone that didn't work. He coughed instead. "We are here to resolve a misunderstanding," he began, words slow as syrup. "We don't need outsiders." He looked at Sadia when he said it. Her eyebrow barely twitched. "We'll keep this respectful," Shabnam said smoothly, taking center place like she was hosting an awards show. "We don't need police, we don't need shame. We're here to protect relationships." "And property," Bilal added, an unbothered smile sliding across his face like oil. Heat climbed my throat. "My property," I said. "Language," the shortest elder murmured, as if the word might stain the walls. "Sister, we want peace." "Peace without truth is anesthesia," Sadia said, and the tallest elder flinched at the syllables like they were stones thrown at a window. Ayan finally spoke. "We just want to start our life," he said, voice thin. "It's complicated." "Complicated," Farah echoed, opening her folder. "Let's simplify. We'll speak plainly, and we'll use paper." She laid the first document on the table. The paper looked ordinary. It wasn't. "Title register," she said. "Land registry. Sole proprietorship, her name. Date of transfer, 7 years ago. Mortgage satisfied. This flat is not for debate." The elders leaned in. You could feel the room shift, like a bus taking a corner too fast. Shabnam didn't blink. "We're not debating ownership," she said, sugar hard. "We're discussing harmony." "Which is why you delivered an arbitration summons under my door," I said. My voice sounded calm, I didn't know how I'd done that. "With bring the keys handwritten at the bottom." A tiny ripple, someone's quiet laugh, quickly strangled. Bilal spread his hands. "You took it the wrong way." "An invitation." "To surrender?" Sadia asked. He grinned at her, all teeth. "To be gracious." Nyla's pen scratched against her clipboard. "Recording that choice of word," she said. Graciousness demanded at knuckle point. The second document went down. Farah's voice stayed soft, almost tender. "Medical report from the urgent treatment center," she said. "Contusion left cheek, photographed with consent. Time-stamped." Shabnam's smile cooled. "We don't need to waive papers," she said. We need to keep dignity. If dignity requires my silence, I said, you can keep it. A hush hooked itself under the ceiling. I could smell the tea cooling in the thermos, oversteeped, bitter now. I imagined pouring it onto the carpet and watching the stain spread, slow and honest. Look, Ayan said quickly, palms up. We can all admit emotions ran high. Let's agree to reset. Hira was under pressure. Mom refuses to. Hira's bangles chimed, warning. He swallowed the last word. We can reset, Farah said gently. We reset to facts. No keys are changing hands. No relocation is being dressed as compromise. We are willing to discuss what support the couple needs to start in a rental. Rental? Bilal barked. When there's an empty flat with no husband inside it? He flicked his gaze at me and smirked. No offense. Offense taken, I said, before the elders could clear their throats into the word. The tallest elder tried again. Sister, he said, and made sister sound like obstacle. Children need security. Security for whom? Sadia asked. For a marriage, or for a portfolio? Shabnam's eyes flashed. How dare you, she whispered. Nyla reached into her tote and brought out a thin stack of paper held together with a bulldog clip. She slid it across the plastic table to the elders, then tilted it so everyone nearby could read. The faint blue of WhatsApp printed bubbles ran down the page like a river, timestamps, names, emojis that looked suddenly obscene. I didn't breathe. A discussion thread, Nyla said lightly. From a family group chat. Obtained from a member who prefers not to be named. She tapped the top page with her pen. 2 days before the wedding, get the keys on the night, best time, less fuss. She flipped a page. And this, the overground makes it gold. Airbnb it, 5-star easy. We'll rehouse Auntie nicely for a while, she'll adapt. Flip. And finally, no paper trail. Keep it verbal. She's soft. Every word landed like a penny on a drum. Shabnam's hand flew to her chest. This is private, she snapped. Privacy is not impunity, Sadia said. The elders looked at one another like a trick had turned inside out. One of them took off his glasses and polished them, though they were already clean. Ayan made a small sound, something between a gasp and a groan. He pressed his fingers to his eyes. I didn't write that, he whispered. Did you read it? Sadia asked, softer now. He didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. Hira leaned forward, eyes glass bright. Everyone takes screenshots these days, she said, voice wobbling into a laugh that wasn't. Anyone could have. Your name's on 3 messages, Nyla said. And a selfie with a packing tape roll. She turned a page. Cute. The room swayed on its feet. The tallest elder attempted to herd the moment back into a box. We should pause, he said, palms down. We are not a court. Correct, Farah said. Which is why you will stop trying to act like one. Send us to mediation. With a family mediation council, registered mediator. Today. Or, Bilal said pleasantly, we finish it here. Keys, apology, everyone goes home. I looked at Ayan. He stared back, face gray as the tube lights. In his eyes I saw the boy who used to check the front door twice after his father died, rattling the handle, making sure the world couldn't get in. Beta, I said quietly, voice meant for just us, and the whole room leaned closer anyway, you can start your life without my front door. He shook his head once, a tiny motion, then steadied himself like a man stepping onto a boat. Mom is right, he said, louder. We won't live there. We'll find a rental. We'll figure it out. Hira turned to him sharply. You promised, she hissed. He flinched. I promised to protect us. That includes her. Shabnam's mouth hardened into something that wasn't a mouth anymore. Bilal smiled the way knives smile. The tallest elder sighed with theatrical weariness. Fine, he said. Mediation. But let's all be sensible. No need to involve police. We already have, Farah said, folding the WhatsApp stack back into her folder. Crime reference number on file. CCTV requested. Witness list compiled. We are being extremely sensible. Shabnam tugged her shawl tighter. And we, she said, will handle our daughter. Start with an apology, Sadia replied. Hira's jaw clenched. For what? For raising your hand to the person who raised your husband, I said, and felt my own voice surprise me again. She looked at me. For a moment, everything fell out of her face, cunning, entitlement, even the anger. What was left was a young woman whose plan had failed in public. Then the mask slid back. We'll see you at mediation, she said, and stood as though leaving meant winning. Chairs scraped. The elders shuffled their papers into neat piles that said nothing and everything. People began to talk again in that particular register reserved for scandal you refused to name. When the room thinned, Bilal leaned over the table until his breath fogged the plastic. You think anyone's scared of your letters? He murmured. You think some clipboard and a woman with a scarf can stop us? Sadia stepped between us so smoothly it looked like choreography. Up close, her calm had edges. Yes, she said. I do. He smirked. You'll regret making noise. Noise is how alarms work, she said. You hear them before the fire eats the house. He turned to leave, then paused at the door and glanced back at me. Doors, he said softly, like a promise, like a threat. They open. They lock, I said, meeting his eyes. Mine does. The elders muttered about dates and neutral venues. Farah penciled in tomorrow. Nyla took photos of the whiteboard with her phone, names, times, nothing elegant, everything necessary. Meher pressed a paper cup of tea into my hand. It had gone bitter while it waited. I drank anyway. On the walk out, the corridor felt narrower than when we'd come in. The community notice board was crowded with flyers: yoga on Tuesdays, free legal clinic Wednesdays, a lost cat named Poppy staring out with haunted eyes. Rain freckled the glass on the front door. The evening smelled like bus exhaust and wet wool. At the curb, a car door thudded shut. Footsteps approached, unhurried, certain. We turned together. A man in a navy overcoat stepped into the light, rain beating on his shoulders. He held a slim leather case, not a banner. Not a bouquet. He raised a hand in greeting, and something in my ribs unclenched, the shape of his walk, the steadiness of his gaze. Bilal, halfway to his car, stopped dead. Hira glanced over her shoulder and went pale in a way makeup can't hide. The man smiled, small and cool. Evening, he said, voice easy as a key turning. I hear we're choosing between sense and trouble. Who? Shabnam began. He opened the case just enough for the edge of an ID to show. I'm here for the sensible option, he said mildly. And to remind everyone what trouble looks like on paper. The rain ticked louder. My cheek pulsed once, then went quiet. Sadia exhaled like a woman who'd been holding a door against wind and felt someone else take the weight. Shall we? The man said. And the night inhaled, waiting for the next word. The recorder light blinked red like a heartbeat, and the room went very still. I could smell lemon cleaner and old carpet. Frosted glass blurred the corridor into soft shapes. Outside, phones buzzed and stopped, like distant insects. The mediator, a neat woman with a silver pen and a voice you couldn't argue with, cleared her throat. "We are recording for an accurate note," she said. "Interruptions will be marked. If anyone shouts, we pause. If anyone threatens, we stop. Do we agree?" "I agree," I said. My voice sounded steadier than my hands felt. Sadia sat at my left, solid as a lamppost. Farah laid out our stack of papers like a small altar: title register, medical report, the arbitration slip from under my door, the printed messages that had turned the room at the community hall into shards. Nyla sat near the door with a legal pad, a quiet sentry. Across from us, Ayan, jaw tight, Hira, mouth poised, Shabnam, immaculate, Bilal, aloud and for support, the mediator said, with a look that warned him he was on thin ice. The man from last night's curb, navy overcoat, leather case, took the chair behind us, not at the table. He nodded when I glanced back. "Observer," he murmured, and slipped a business card toward me with the pad of his finger. "Duty solicitor. Clinic night, pro bono." The name made a low, warm bell ring in my chest. Not rescue, exactly. "Witness. Ground rules," the mediator repeated, uncapping her pen. "We will not relitigate what police or a court should handle. We will address practical arrangements. I will summarize, you will correct me if I err. Ready?" She looked at me first, and the dignity of that small courtesy loosened something in my throat. "Ready," I said. She tilted her silver pen toward Farah's papers. "Ownership, the flat is solely in your name. No beneficial interest claimed by the couple. That is accepted?" Ayan nodded, eyes on the table. Shabnam smiled with only the top half of her face. "We accept ownership," she said, and then, as if adding sugar to something sour, "we discuss family harmony." "Great," the mediator said, and the word clipped the air like scissors. "Next. Incident. There is an assault allegation with a crime reference number. There is a medical report. There are witnesses. We are not here to adjudicate guilt. We are here to prevent further harm. I am recording that this will not be solved by apology alone. Understood?" Hira's jaw flexed. "I'm under pressure," she said, soft and theatrical. "Things were said. Things were done," Farah murmured. The mediator's pen hovered. "We'll return to apology language at the end," she said. "Now, requests." Hira turned to me as if to an audience. "Auntie," she began, adhesive sweet, "we only want stability. You're alone in a two-bed, we're newly married. It's practical." "Practical," I said, and tasted iron behind the word. "To take my keys in public? To plan it in chat messages?" Shabnam leaned forward, palms open like empty bowls. "We don't need to inflame." "We don't," the mediator cut in smoothly. "We need commitments. Here is my starting proposal." She wrote as she spoke, looping the letters with a teacher's clarity. Number 1, no one will demand, request, copy, or retain keys to the flat without the owner's written consent. Number 2, no one will attempt to store possessions, move in, or cause the owner to relocate. Number 3, any contact at the front door requires notice by text. She looked at me. "What minimum?" 24 hours, I said, surprising myself with the number and liking it immediately. 24 hours, she repeated, writing. Number 4, If further harassment occurs, door scratching, notes, messages, application for a non-molestation order will be immediate. Number 5, an apology written, not posted online. Speaking of which, number 6, no social media content of the incident is to be shared. If anything exists, it's to be deleted. Does anyone object to that? Hira's lips parted. Closed. Why would we post, she said, and couldn't keep the flicker of panic out of her eyes. Shabnam smoothed her shawl. We are private people. Privacy follows accountability, the mediator said, almost kindly. Now, financial practicality. She turned to Ayan. Where will you live for the next 3 months? He stared at the table as if an answer might float up out of the wood. We were planning otherwise. Planning with my walls, I said. The words came easier now. They can start small and start clean. He lifted his head. The boy who used to rattle the door handle was in his eyes again, so was the man who had to decide what kind of husband he wanted to be. We can rent, he said, voice low, then firmer. We'll rent. Hira swung toward him so fast her earring flashed. We agreed. We agreed on a life, he said. Not theft. Silence went warm around us. Even Bilal's grin faltered. I can help with the deposit, I added, and Shabnam's head jerked toward me like a bird's. Half, I said, before she could call it manipulation. A loan. You'll pay it back in 6 months. Ayan exhaled, shaky. Thank you. The mediator's pen moved again, steady as pulse. Loan arrangement between mother and son, private. Outside our purview, she said, but she wrote it down, and I loved her for that small acknowledgement. Paper mattered. It had always mattered, but now I could feel it under my hands, not just in my head. Apology, she said, looking finally at Hira. You will write to her today. You will acknowledge the act. You will not say if I hurt you or misunderstood. You will say I hit you and I apologize. You will not ask for keys or imply you deserve them. You will say you will not ask again. Hira looked at Shabnam, who looked at Bilal, who tried to look at the duty solicitor and failed. This is humiliating, she muttered. It is accountable, the mediator corrected, not unkind. Accountability feels like humiliation when you're used to impunity. Bilal slouched back, making his chair squeal. And if we don't sign? He asked, lazy dangerous. Then I file for an order today, Farah said, sweet as tea left to steep exactly long enough. And I send the messages to the police. Also, the hall CCTV from the corridor is being preserved. She smiled. We were extremely boring about paperwork. He glanced at the duty solicitor, who had taken out a pen and done nothing with it except make the heir aware of its presence. The solicitor's face was easy, amused even, but his eyes weren't. Shabnam sighed, head bowed as if beneath water. We sign, she said. To her daughter, under her breath, enough. The mediator read the draft aloud so each word hung in the lemon smell and the carpet's tired fibers. No keys, no demands, notice required, apology, delete footage, rental, loan, referral to counseling for the couple, clear route to non-molestation if breached. She pushed the papers forward. If you agree, sign and date. My hand shook a little when I wrote my name. Not from fear. From bigness, the feeling of filling my own skin. Ayan signed next, pen scratching. Hira's signature was a slash. Shabnam wrote each letter like she was stitching a wound. Bilal hesitated, then pressed so hard the nib tore a tiny hole in the paper. The mediator swapped pages without comment. Copies, she said, stacking, aligning, sliding crisp sheets to each of us. If there's a breach, you email me and your lawyer and you call the police. If there's progress, you tell no one but yourselves. We stood. The recorder light blinked off. The room untensed. Lemon and carpet and the faint smell of printer ink rose like a tired choir. Outside, in the corridor's soft blur, Ian touched my arm, just above the elbow, the way a child asks to cross a street. "Mom," he said, voice small in a way that rang all the way back to his 12-year-old photo. "I'm sorry." I swallowed. "Be good to yourself," I said. "Then be good to her. But not at my expense." He nodded, eyes stinging. Hira stood a foot away, brittle as glass. She didn't look at me. She looked at the solicitor, then at her phone, as if the right angle might make all this dissolve. Sadia wrapped me in a one-armed hug that didn't need words. Farah tucked the signed sheets into a red folder like a midwife placing a newborn somewhere safe. On the pavement outside, London had turned that clean gray it gets after rain. Buses sighed. A man walked past with a bakery box and the sweet of sugar hit my nose so sharply my eyes watered. The duty solicitor shook my hand. "You did well," he said. "Paperwork isn't courage, but it protects courage while it works." "It felt like both," I said. "Then keep doing both," he said, and left us with a nod. We walked toward the bus stop, the wind stroking the bruise beneath my scarf. A message arrived before the first number of the route had time to roll across the digital sign. Unknown number. A photo. My front door, grainy and close, the paint around the lock etched with fresh scratches that hadn't been there this morning. And below it, 4 words typed clean as a blade. Keys or consequences? Choose. I smelled the paint before I saw it, the sharp, solvent tang of a fresh wound. The scratches around my lock were raw white against the blue, like claw marks. I didn't touch them. I took 3 photos, then a short video with my finger in frame for scale, my breath big and ugly in the audio. The corridor light flickered. Somewhere a baby cried. My kettle clicked on by itself, I'd left it primed for tea. I wanted that sound. It meant home. "Do not reply," Farah texted back when I forwarded the photo. Save. Timestamp. Police now. I dialed. The handler's voice was even as a ruler. Crime ref number? I read it, surprised I knew it by heart. "There's fresh damage to the front door," I said. A message, keys or consequences? Choose. "Do you feel in immediate danger?" I looked through the peephole. The corridor was empty, carpet dull as old moss. My heart was loud enough to be its own neighbor. "Not immediate," I said. But watched. "We'll send a unit," she said. "Stay inside. Do not engage if anyone returns." I locked the chain and stood with my forehead against the wood. It smelled faintly of varnish and the old life of the building, dust, rain, sweat, hands. I had cleaned this door, decorated it at Christmas, hung a paper moon for Eid. Now it was a mouth with teeth. Sadia arrived before the police, moving like a woman whose blood had a metronome in it. "I brought someone," she said, stepping aside. A man with a canvas tool bag and a quiet nod. The locksmith shook my hand, then the doors, eyes soft with a craftsman's pity. "Nasty," he murmured, peering close. "We'll fix it." The drill's whine was a bone vibration. Metal filings fell like glitter onto his tarp. When he fitted the new deadbolt, I felt something settle behind my ribs, a click inside me matching the one in the metal. "Viewer next," he asked, holding up a brass ring. His breath smelled of peppermint. He worked at the peephole like a jeweler, patient, exacting. Doorbell, he added, tapping the small box in his bag. Camera, motion alert. Your phone pings if anyone breathes at your letterbox. Yes, I said, and didn't care if it made me paranoid. He showed me the app. I named the device Front Door. I wanted the words in my palm. By the time the police came, the door had a new eye and a new spine. The young officer, hair damp from rain, watched the locksmith sweep up metal dust. We'll review building CCTV, she said, scribbling. Who has access to your landing? Half the world, if you believe gossip, Sadia muttered. I gave the officer the threats, the mediation agreement, the WhatsApp printouts, the works. She whistled softly at the stack. You weren't kidding about paperwork, she said. We love paperwork. When she left, I made tea and held the mug to my cheek like a ritual. The flat smelled of thyme and heat. The basil plant on the sill leaned toward the gray light. I texted Ayan the photo of the scratches without comment. He called immediately. Who did that? He asked, voice pitched like a string about to snap. If I guess, it becomes a fight, I said. Let the footage answer. I'm coming over. No, I said, and gentled it. Boundaries are safer than bravado. You and Hira have counseling tomorrow? A small noise. Yes. Go, I said. Begin properly, if you're going to begin. He hesitated. I found a set of your old keys in my jacket. From when I used to feed the basil while you were away. He exhaled, a shaky laugh at the memory that managed to make me smile. I'll bring them and put them in your hand. Good, I said. That's where they live. He laughed again, wetter. I'm sorry. I know, I said, and meant, keep going. The footage arrived the next afternoon, a pixel blur that was still him. Bilal, hood up, head down, too close to the lens to pretend it was anyone else. The officer came back with the stills on glossy paper. We'll add to the file, she said, brisk now. He'll be called in. Her pen moved. I watched the ink make evidence of what women had known at a glance for centuries. I didn't shout about it in the family chat. I didn't call Shabnam to listen to the stunned silence turn to outrage turn to spin. I sent Farah the images and slipped the rest into a clear plastic sleeve. When I put the sleeve in my file, the folder sighed like a book closing. That evening, Ayan arrived with a brown paper bag of groceries and his palm open. The keys lay there like coins from a country that no longer existed. Keep the apples, I said, and let him drop the metal into my hand. The weight was small and absolute. Counseling was, he paused, searching, like being made to hold a mirror until your arms hurt. We're going back. Good, I said. The kettle clicked alive. Mirrors make decent doors, sometimes. He smiled without quite managing it. At the threshold he turned. Mom? Yes? Keep the key I have to your heart, he said, then rolled his eyes at himself. Sorry. The counselor said start with truth even if it sounds like a bad film. Keep practicing, I said, and watched him walk down the corridor, get smaller, then turn back and wave, just once, like a boy. 2 weeks later, Sadia and I pushed the plastic chairs into a circle in the community room. Someone had left a glittery happy birthday banner in one corner, we let it hang. Meher set out paper cups. Nyla laid out leaflets like cards in a trick, each one a way out of a maze. The room smelled of floor cleaner and orange peel. I wrote keys and doors on the whiteboard with a stale marker, going over the faint letters twice, then a third time, until the words were dark and sure. Women arrived in ones and twos. A nurse in scrubs with a bruise under her hijab, carefully covered. A lady with perfect nails and a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. A student with a backpack and shoulders up by her ears. I recognized the way they held their hands, making fists just off their laps, practicing release. "We're not a therapy group," Sadia said. "We're a practical group. We learn to name things. We learn to document. We learn to speak without asking permission. Also," I added, "we make tea." The kettle boiled like applause. The room warmed. I told them about doors. About keys. About how silence can look like peace until you count the bruises, the bills, the nights you spend sleeping with your body clenched like a fist because you don't know what version of someone will come through your lock. I told them what a crime ref number feels like. It feels like a handhold on a cliff. I told them I didn't feel brave. I just felt tired of being tidy in my suffering. They nodded. They wrote. They told pieces of their own stories like bread torn in equal parts so no one went hungry. At break, I stood by the window with my tea and watched evening settle blue over the estate. My phone pinged, an email from the officer. Mr. Bilal attended interview. Conditions warned. Further harassment arrest. It wasn't a victory. It was a gate closing with a proper latch. On the bus home, the city smelled like fried onions and rain. My seat vibrated with the engine's patient animal hum. I leaned my head against the cold window and let it hold me. At my stop, a woman with a pram smiled at me like we belonged to a quiet club of people who had learned to walk with their chins up even when their legs were shaking. Inside, the flat was itself. I cooked lentils with cumin and a leaf of bay. Steam ghosted the window. The basil leaned toward me as if to ask for gossip. I laughed, surprising myself. I wiped the counter twice, then didn't wipe it a third time. The camera pinged when a moth flirted with the doorbell's light. I watched the little body fling itself at brightness, again and again, and felt absurdly tender towards something that couldn't learn yet. Near midnight, I took out the small brass key on the ribbon I'd started wearing when I was alone. I rubbed the teeth smooth with my thumb until heat bloomed there. I held it up and watched it flash in the kitchen light. The phrase that had stuck to my ribs since the hall rose in my mouth without effort: silence is the cage, speaking is the key. I said it aloud, to the steam and the spoon and the basil and the old door with its new eye. My voice didn't tremble. It filled the room like music more honest than celebration. The buzzer sounded, one short press, polite, almost shy. My phone lit with the doorbell camera. A figure stood in the corridor, head bowed, hands empty. I set the key down, not to hide it, but because my hand was steadier empty. I walked to the door and looked through the brass ring. The lens rounded everything. The figure lifted their face to the camera, to me. "Amy," my son said, voice tinny through the intercom when I pressed the button. "It's just me. I wrote something." On the screen, he held up a folded sheet. The apology letter. The one the mediator had required. He'd written it and brought it to my door at 23 minutes past 12, like a penitent and a friend. I rested my palm on the wood. The door was warm from the flat's breath. 1 minute, I set into the grill, and reached for the chain. Somewhere, in the building's old bones, another door closed softly, then opened again.